Okay, we'll bring today's session of budget to order, and I just turn it over to Director Vickers.
Good morning. How's everyone today? We're fine. Good. Okay. So far. So this morning we're just going to start out by going through the capital budget today. Oh, yes.
Sorry, I'm not sure if this is the right time. Mayor Barclay through to Director Vickers. I've got a question from yesterday that I was thinking about last night. And it's on the council, in the council tab. And it's the council honorarium and fee. Mm-hmm. And I was just wondering about the 2022 amount. Is that's the amount that was budgeted, but we don't know yet what was spent, right? Because it's not end of year. And then, so 2023, I was just wondering what is causing the increase of 10.75%?
Attitude, Mayor Barclay through to Councillor Mazzaro. So a small portion of that would be COLA, but also a portion of that is the increased attendance in other meetings. So not your regular council meetings, but those kind of other meetings and other committee meetings. So that has increased over the last few years, so we have had to increase that as well.
Thank you. So just going back to our discussion yesterday about where cutbacks might be made. So anyway, yeah, thanks for that.
Okay, so we'll start with the presentation. So excuse me. So we like to just start out by talking about the capital projects that we actually did complete this year. So the list is quite extensive. So we completed the heliport, the 2022 surface improvements, the outdoor rink, the Napoleon playground, the sound wall, lighting upgrades throughout all of our town buildings, some updates in the arena with the dehumidifier and the condenser. We completed the building condition assessments this year on a few of our buildings. Lights and security cameras at the skate park. We did complete the fleet purchases that were included in our budget from last year. The CCTV sewer camera. We completed the alarm system switch over across our buildings as well. Gateway landscaping phase 2. The new flooring in the library was completed. Eastgate lift station will be completed by the end of the year. The wheelchair accessible van was purchased and was put in this year. At the pool, we got the liquid chlorine production unit installed, as well as getting the portable freestanding lift. We purchased and installed the recycling bins program. Ball Diamonds 5, 6, and 8 irrigation was completed. 50th Street manhole replacements, the SCBA replacement for our fire department. The CP rail crossing, as well as the whistle cessation was completed, and the diesel generator at Reservoir 2. So it was quite a busy year. We got lots of stuff done. Not everything got completed. We do have a few carryover projects. So on the next slide. So wayfinding signage phase 3 will be carried over and completed next year. The pool storage shed, which might turn into to be actually just a C-can, will be carried over. The Max Park Playground, I don't know if that's still what we're going to be calling it, but the Hazelwood houses likely will be carried over to next year. The Southwest Industrial Solar Project, as well as the industrial design and completion of that portion, will be carried over. The pool validation report, as well as the solar panels across the facilities, is a carryover. Is there any questions on any of those carryover projects?
I have one. I don't think it's a carryover project. The lift station, is that going to end under the highway, or are we still digging? Or
The lift station?
Nope, it's good.
it's good? Okay, thanks.
Okay, so now we'll go through the different projects that we are proposing in this budget.
I was just going to ask about the Diamond 7. Like, we've paid off our portion, right? Like, I think there's an additional 500,000 or so on that. That's gonna be fundraised from the society, correct?
So from my understanding, the whole project budget was 500,000 and we submitted our portion of
Yeah.
250. Their portion is 250, so they still have to fundraise and source that out.
So, and I guess my question is, are they gonna complete it or able to complete it? Like, that's,
Right.
timing wise, that's a lot of money for them to fundraise, so.
They've been quite successful on a number of things. They've been having a lot of delays, so like, just a quick update. So they've been working with Fortis in regards to a transformer, new service put in for the score clock. So that'll be going in next year. The new bleachers will go in next year. And I think they're still working on the announcers tower. So still finalizing budgets for that stuff. So I think they've been quite successful on, but they are still currently working on more budgets. But those are just things that'll happen in the spring in order to get that diamond operational next year. But yes, next year for sure it'll get operational. Now, all of the remaining items are still.
And the reason why I ask is just aesthetically, we need it to look good. That's why I'm asking the question. As to the Max Playground, is that a full replacement of that diamond down there, or is that just an upkeep item?
It's a full replacement to the playground.
Oh, it's a playground.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, ball down. Okay. I'll wake up. Thanks.
Okay, so. Okay, so now we'll just go through the different items that we're going to be looking to ask for. Under the capital tab in your binders, there is a spreadsheet that kind of itemizes it out in front if you want to follow along as well. So the first item is a town office fire system. So that's an integrated fire system for this building with the traditional pull tabs with the fire alarm system. It was determined that when this building was renovated that was not a requirement up to building code, but it has been indicated that it would be beneficial in an emergency situation. Primarily, we do have a tenant that's attached to this building that if something happened over there or over here, it would not be portrayed to them easily, right? If we had an integrated fire system, if the fire alarm went over here, it would go through the whole building, which would also include the senior center as well. So the cost for that is estimated to be $15,000, and we would be funding it just from the general capital reserve. Okay, so the next section is the town office entry. So there is some paving stones that are down at the bottom of the steps that run parallel along with the sidewalk. Excuse me. And they keep sagging in through the winter, and we've replaced them before. We've pulled all the paving stones out and re-put sand down, leveled it out, and put the paving stones down in. And they keep sagging, and it creates a tripping hazard. So what we would like to do is pull all that out and replace those paving stones with a nice stamped concrete to reduce that tripping hazard. So it is $20,000 a cost to do that. The alternative would be we could replace those paving stones again, take them out, re-level it and put them back in. That's just a lot of work that has to happen every year. So the cost for this one is approximately $20,000, also to be funded from the general capital reserve. Okay, and there's one more for the town office that we would like to have in this capital project. And that is prepping the building just with the hookups for a generator. So in the event of an emergency, should we need to use this building for running of our financial software or anything like that, we don't have the ability to hook up a generator in this building. So this is not the purchase of a generator. This would just be getting the hookup ready, probably likely just outside that back door area where we could rent a generator in the event of emergency and hook it up in there. So that is $15,000 coming from the general cap reserve.
I think that's a good idea. We've been talking about a generator for this building for a long time, right?
That's
So
right, that's right,
it's,
yeah.
yeah, wise.
Well, and it's something that we need to plan for. We don't want to get into a situation where we need it and don't have the ability
Yeah,
to install.
absolutely.
Oh, I got a question.
Sure.
Because it's the generator piece. How much would that generator be?
That's not something that I know at this moment.
Okay. No, and the reason why I'm saying is that if you're gonna do this, you may as well bite the bullet and take it out of reserves and just have it ready, because it's like emergency preparedness. It's just having it ready to go. It,
For the lift?
Yeah,
or for the fire hall or something like that. I don't know. Like, you don't want to take one from and then.
Fire hall already has a generator.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has one there. We would look probably at an analysis to see how to utilize the generator we have, portable unit. But then, yeah, we can get into further detail this year to.
Okay. So it's about planning. Thanks.
So I was gonna ask, didn't we buy a generator that could be used at various lift stations, and so
Yes.
that one would work here in the interim till we figured?
It could. The problem is if we have a town outage on.
No, I realize
on a
that.
generator, likely we'll
That's
have
where
to
I'm
use
going.
that generator for the lift stations, but yeah, it's definitely something we need to plan for an emergency, definitely. It's
Yeah,
something.
yeah, no, I wasn't thinking it would replace, I was just thinking there'd be, sometimes you could use it, maybe.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
That's where I was going. Like, if something did happen in our community, we're well prepared, you know, rather than pushing it out another year or two. That's where my mind was going, is that you may as well be ready for it. And if there's you know, if it's reasonable to purchase it, then maybe we do that. To me, it sounds kind of silly when we're prepping for emergencies. And then what's like, well, we didn't have a one for the office. And then you kind of caught with your pants down. It's like getting pantsed in the hallway at school. So, seriously.
Yeah, just to follow up on the generator, would it be plumbed into the system, like I'm sort of hearing portable and stuff? I'd recommend that if we can plumb it right in, so that if you do go down, it's instant, it just turns on. I don't know what the cost difference is. And the second thing is more than just the office. We have an emergency operations center over somewhere where they need to come. The people like, and we don't have anything there. So if the power goes down in Innisfil, you're gonna be without power at these centers. So, and I know there used to be money available, Emergency Management Alberta, for emergency generators. So maybe that's something that we can look into, to see if, particularly the one for the, I guess, the emergency management group.
CEO Becker.
Yeah, I'd suggest, we do have a preliminary number through the manager leave, so we can pull that number through a text. As you get through capital, you can say, oh, let's add it in, or no, we're good, but we'll pull the number at least, and then you can have that deliberation once you have that number.
But we also have a generator at the fire hall, and that's where the emergency management station would be in the event of emergency. So, you know, I feel, I guess, sitting on that committee, I think Innisfil has a very comprehensive emergency management plan that's in place, and so the fire hall is definitely set up, correct?
It is,
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm referring to if you have to house people, we don't, and I'm gonna use the Legion, I'm putting my Legion hat on now, but that's designated as the center, and we don't have emergency power there. And what I'm suggesting is that the power goes down in Innisfil, the power's gonna go down over there, and could have any, you know, a number of people that are being housed there that we have no power. So it's just I think we need to think about it through, and if there's dollars available through Emergency Management Alberta, I think we should follow up on it. So, but
Yeah, definitely, Councillor Harrison, and I know we need to exercise our plan locally with different agencies. Manager Leith needs to speak to that. Right now, we're covered at the hall for ECC. We're looking at our own needs for town functioning during a requirement. First start would be to get the wiring put in. And if there's capital dollars available at the end of this and you wish to advance into more of a purchase and installation, We'll get that number to see if that's something you want to consider. But right now, we're not recommending to advance beyond on our emergency plan and further investment until we have that plan further flushed out.
Okay, good. I just didn't want to lose sight of it. Thank you.
Okay. So we'll move on to the next slide, and that is some roof repairs, at the fire hall. So the built-up roof surface on the office portion of the fire hall has exceeded its expected useful life and has leakage issues as per the BCA. In addition, the area over the bays requires a major repair to correct drainage slopes. So there's $41,000 cost to do the replacement of the built-up area of the roof and $25,000 for evaluation of design and correction of the roof slopes, for a total of $66,000, which we would be pulling from the general cap reserve to fix these issues. Any questions on?
I was just curious how old the fire hall is.
I don't know off the top of my head. Do you know
How
the
old
year?
the fire hall is?
What do you think?
I should know it. I've seen it from the library
That's
stuff.
okay. Doesn't matter, just-
Yeah, I'm not sure when they first did.
It's probably 12 to 13 because the fire hall and then the library is built.
The
Remember?
library was built in 2010,
Yeah.
the new library. But then the old portion of the library, I'm not sure, or like the old portion of the fire hall, I'm not sure how far back that goes. But that was part, so we did building condition assessments on 3 buildings, and this was the most urgent item on the fire hall recommended plan for maintenance.
Who does the maintenance now on the roof? How's that handled? Is it do our staff, do they do regular inspections?
They do staff does regular inspections. Any work beyond minor stuff would be through a contractor.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So Director Jenkins, the solar array that's going on there, it's not done yet, correct? So probably wise,
Yeah,
right? Probably got lucky that it wasn't. Yeah.
If there's no more questions, we'll move on to the next slide. So the next slide corresponds with an item in the operating budget. So the assistant chief would need a new vehicle. So it would be a half-ton truck for the assistant fire chief position with the emergency response package attached to it. So he did ask for a Ford F-150. The cost would be about $55,000, and then the emergency light package and all the deckling and all that kind of stuff would be an additional $20,000 to come out of, to be a total of $75,000. And that would be funded out of the fire department reserve.
It's not coming in. Oh,
Okay.
oh, it's still on the door. Sorry.
We knew you were coming.
My bad.
I started streaming it to make sure that we were.
Okay, so if there's no questions on that one, we'll move on to the next one, which is the 2023 surface improvements. And inside this project, there is 5 projects inside. So the first one is 40th Street from 51st Avenue to 49th Avenue. And this project requires surface replacements with some minor curb and sidewalk replacements. The roadway was identified as a high priority in the 2022 road assessment, with that individual's cost of $550,000. So the next set is 42nd Street from Highway 54 to 60th Avenue. This requires a new sidewalk and multi-use trail to connect the Bella Vista subdivision, and that cost is $160,000. The next one is replacement of paved lanes in various areas. Priorities will be based on the lane assessment completed in 2021. That's $266,000. So the next project is the trail replacement at the Napoleon Park Sports Fields. These areas were removed as part of the construction for Diamond 7, irrigation and the outdoor rink, and now we need to replace them. So that project is worth $100,000. The last one is 40th Street close. From 40th Street to the end requires a new sanitary main as it has many sags and requires regular flushing. And the roadway was identified as a high priority in the 2022 road assessment. So that is $230,000. The design and tender will be completed in the winter of 2022 with construction during the summer of 2023. So the total cost for this project is $1,306,000. We will be pulling 100% of our MSI funding, which is $847,106, and the balance coming from the wastewater reserve of $458,000. So any discussion on that project? No? Okay. We can move on to the next one. So we are looking to replace our backhoe this year. So we have a 2009 CAT 420E backhoe. It's a very highly used piece of equipment between all three departments. The unit has been fully rebuilt once before and is starting to need parts redone again. So looking to replace with a newer used unit. So we wouldn't even be buying a brand new unit. And the cost would be $210,000 approximately. And we'd be funding that from the Public Works Equipment Reserve.
Are we, excuse me, are we selling the other one, or does it have much residual value? Steve, or-
We would send it to auction, so it's depending on the auction.
So the next item is a new box for a gravel or plow truck. So unit 55 is a 2001 gravel and plow truck, but it's used mostly in the wintertime. This unit is a frontline truck that completes the initial road opening after a snowfall. This truck has started to become a maintenance issue where the box is needing to be welded every year. We are proposing to only replace the box as the unit's mechanicals is still good. But the new box cost would still be $100,000, and we would be funding this out of the snow reserve, as this is a piece of equipment primarily used in the wintertime.
Are these boxes universal? Like when we trade the truck in, I see it's 2001. Will that box, the new box, if approved, will it be adaptable to whatever frame you're going to put it on?
No, I don't believe so. It would depend on the unit, like we'd have to look specifically for a new, like mechanically, we'd have to look for a unit that would be able to accommodate this one, because it's an older unit, but I don't for sure know if it would be transferable. It would be dependent.
So we could have a brand new box that doesn't fit a truck if we buy a new truck. Is that what I'm hearing?
Potentially, yeah. We did look at, this item was actually last year, we had this on last year's unit. The reason that we modified the ask on this is we spent the year looking for a unit, a full unit, and they're just really hard to come by on a used unit. We couldn't find one. So the only other option was to go brand new, which we didn't feel was probably fiscally responsible. So we are looking to just modify, do the work we need mechanically to keep the unit going, and just replace the box.
So curious, Director Kennedy, what is new? Just to put things in perspective.
Yeah, I don't know for sure. I don't know what a
Okay.
brand new unit would have
Yeah.
been. It would have been what, last year we budgeted 210,000.
Okay.
It would have been well over that,
Yeah.
that cost.
Probably a lot more than now.
Yeah, that's my comment directly to Steve, was just that cost of a new, are we miling out? It's 2001, maybe it's allocate to reserve for a couple of years to buy a new one. If you have a brand new box and an aging out system or a unit, then it's,
Yeah, what we did in our capital fleet management software is we've got that mechanical section of the unit transferred back into, I don't know the year. So we've just allocated now to replace the box, and then maybe, I don't know if it's 5-10 years that they feel it's mechanically sound, and then we would put in for a brand new unit. So it's just trying to really extend the unit itself lifespan wise.
I don't think we need to get in the weeds, but just for everybody's knowledge, I talk lots to Roger Malcolm, who runs a fleet of trucks, and to get a new truck now is a year to 18 months delivery with big deposits, and they tell you the price when you buy it.
When it
They
shows
tell you the
up.
price when it comes.
Yeah.
So it's become a crazy part of the world, delivery stuff too, so anytime you start looking at the new, you gotta figure all that stuff out too.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. So the next item we're looking at is replacing the 2001 Ford F-150 service body truck. This is used at dig sites as it holds all the tools for repair jobs. Looking at replacing this unit with a newer used 1-ton flat deck picker unit. So the cost for this vehicle would be $120,000. Looking to fund it from the Public Works Equipment Reserve.
Mayor Barkley through to Director Jenkins, Director Kennedy. Why F-350? Do we tow anything with this? Do we need that heavy of payload, or?
Yeah, great question. So because it's gonna be a picker unit, so we need that size, the 1-ton unit, because of the picker we wanna put on it. By adding the picker unit to this unit, it becomes more universal as well. Now we can use it for other departments, specifically for our utilities department, to be able to lift pumps out of the lift stations. So that's why we were looking to make a more universal unit.
Thank you.
Okay. So the next item we're looking at is replacing Unit 100, which is our 2007 Ford Freestyle station wagon, which will either...
That's exactly what I was just thinking. No, this is a classic.
So maybe we'll sell it privately, or more likely we'll send it to auction with the rest of our items. So our Ford Freestyle is a station wagon with approximately 150,000 kilometers. With low mileage, this vehicle should still have a good trade-in or sale value. This vehicle will be placed with a small SUV type, like an Escape or a RAV4, but it will be the first fleet vehicle for the town that will be a hybrid.
Can I ask how much we use? Like, I mean, we may be not using the Ford as much, but how much do we use like a vehicle? I know when we go someplace, right, we always take our own vehicles and try to carpool and.
I wish they got me for stats, but
Well, just kind of off the
I
top of
think
your
it's
head.
more used internally a bit with community services. I use it on occasion. I do.
We've used it to go
Cruise
to
night.
IPD meetings in Drayton Valley, and
Yeah, I've been to it in Red Deer. It was awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't mind it.
the biggest thing too is if staff doesn't have vehicles that they can fit
Sure.
the stuff in the back, so for
Okay.
events, putting tables, things like that, that's what it gets
Yeah, good point,
used for
Megan.
most
Yeah.
often, yeah.
Sold?
You were, no, actually, I think Jim Romaine really had something for that vehicle, didn't he, Mark? I think there's an opportunity there for a quick sale.
There's actually interest in the office.
Oh, yeah.
Is there really?
Pretty good, love affair with that.
This is a question out of ignorance. Is there an opportunity for us to maybe approach a local dealership or maybe Fortis or Equus to find out about perhaps them helping supplement the cost on this by having some of their livery on it or et cetera? Is there a possibility of that to look for us to reduce the cost? I don't know. Like I said, this comes out of ignorance because obviously it would be advertising for them, and I know that we need to stay impartial, but
Yeah, as part of the so we'll go through with an RFQ. So that's why we didn't specify the type of vehicle. You know, we'll go to the local dealers and we will ask for opportunities from the local dealers to, you know, if they want to put in the RFQs for advertising or decals, or if, you know, we'll provide ideas and we'll get feedback from the local dealers. So in order to try and take advantage of that, to make it competitive though, but yet also very transparent as to what those will be. So we'll bring that back to council once we receive those RFQs and find out what we can receive.
I mean, considering what our power of place and what our plan is and what we're trying to do in the community, I mean, there's a number of businesses coming to town with potentially that maybe we brand it with several different.
With recent purchase experience, if you're trying to get the utilization of the old freestyle, is that what it's called? The size and all that sort of thing, you're gonna be higher than this estimated price, is my guess. That looks like an escape. I don't think it'll do the job. Anyway,
Yeah, so
we'll
I did go
we'll
to
let
the
you guys
local-
work on that.
Yeah, I did go to the local dealer just to get an idea of what, and that was, the 40,000 was provided by a local dealer in regards to what a hybrid smaller SUV would be. So you're right though. It's the market depends. Will tell us what value, I guess, it'll come.
My point is the model of car that's shown is smaller by far than the freestyle.
Yeah, the picture is just a picture to indicate a vehicle, but, yeah. Okay. Okay, so the next project is the second phase of 46th Avenue infrastructure replacement. So the first phase, 50th Street to 48th Street, was completed in 2001, and the second phase is from 48th Street to 46th Street. The existing water main is ductile iron and sanitary main is clay tile and should be replaced while the road is dug up. The road surface has many cracks, failures, and repair sections. The design includes replacement of the water and sanitary mains and services to property lines. The roadway will remain the same width, but all curb and sidewalk will be replaced and will be paved in 2024. The project design was completed in 2022, so will be ready for tender in early spring of 2023 with construction in the summer of 2023. So the cost is $775,000 and will be funded from the stabilization reserve. Any questions on that project? Okay. Let's move on, and there is a small typo. This is 45th Street close on that spreadsheet, not 40th Street. So 45th Street close at 54th Avenue, infrastructure replacements is the next project. The existing water main is asbestos cement and sanitary main is clay tile and requires flushing on a regular basis. The roadway was identified as a high priority in the 2022 road assessment, and the design includes replacement of the water and sanitary mains and services to property lines. The roadway will remain in the same width, but all curb and sidewalk will be replaced and will be paved in 2024 as well. The project design will be completed in 2023 and ready for tender in early spring with construction in the summer of 2023. So the project cost is $418,000 and will be funded from the wastewater reserve. there's no discussion, we can move on to the next item. So the next item is the Cannon Park Playground replacement. So due to aging structures and safety concerns, the Cannon Park Playground is proposed to be replaced in 2023. The project will be completed with collaboration with the Innisfil Kinsman Club, and the new playground will be an accessible playground as well. So the cost is estimated to be $150,000 for this park, with $150,000 from the town and $10,000 from community grants and donations from the public.
Could you enlighten me as to where Cannon Park is?
Up by the sound wall.
Yeah.
Like,
Up where?
towards the sound wall, where there used to be an outdoor rink up there.
It's on
Oh, right, okay, I know where it is now, yeah. I guess our playground sites, do they put signs up? Or do we put signs up, like this is Cannon Park?
Part of the upgrades to our parks they'll all have, new signage.
Okay, thank you.
When we do the upgrades and replacements.
So Director Kennedy, when we were doing the accessible playground last year with Variety, is there another opportunity to work with them? Like, I thought the one gentleman was saying that they have grants available and
Yeah,
that was a project manager there. Can't think of his name,
so we did look at that, in conversations with the Kinsman Club. They can apply for the same grants.
but, okay,
And we weren't successful with many grants with the Variety Club. So we did evaluate the team, and felt comfortable with moving forward with this one with just the Kinsman Club.
okay. So
Yeah,
the Kinsman will maybe apply for a grant or?
They will be, they've already applied for some CFIP in collaboration for this, plus is the, I believe it's because they were the ones that were successful with the $10,000 grant last year for the Napoleon, so they're confident they'll get that again as well.
With Variety?
No, the
with
Kinsmen got the $10,000.
CFIP?
No,
No.
it was
The recycling one.
recycling,
Oh,
I think, through
okay.
Cal Tire, I believe. Not Cal Tire, but, yeah.
Did they apply for a CFIP on that? And?
They did, and we weren't successful.
So maybe we could figure out the batting average on CFIPs?
It's not very good.
No, like 0, so further dialogue on that.
Okay, one more. No, too many.
There you go.
Okay, so the next item we're asking for is air conditioning over to be installed in the senior center. Yeah, until a recent request last year to have this added to the facility, it's been hard to regulate the temperature over there for them, so we feel like, and Megan can.
And I was just gonna add, this is also one that, we're hoping to work with the seniors, cause they would be able to apply for CFIP as well for this type of a project.
And it is estimated to be approximately $25,000. And we would be funding it from the general cap reserve, obviously outside of any grant funding that could be applied for. Okay, so the next item is to do some repairs at the LLC. So as identified in the building condition assessment, the Bittman roof sloping results in ponding and some leaks have resulted. So the cost is about $12,000 to make these repairs, and we'll be looking to fund them from the library reserve. Okay. The next item then we'll be asking for is arena dressing rooms. So this is to replace the flooring and washing room partitions in the dressing rooms. And some will need to be replaced due to excessive damage if this project is not fully completed. The flooring portion is costing $160,000 and the partitions would cost $20,000 for a total of $180,000 to be funded from the arena reserve. Oh, yeah. So the next item is the arena header trench fitting replacement. And so this is to replace existing header fittings to reduce leakage and repair costs. So the arena headers, when were newly installed a few years ago, are creating leaks over time and is the result of headers or existing floor piping reinstalled with a different grade or direction, and the reason for the piping to leak or crack. So we recommend on cutting all circuits close to the floor slab and installing new piping with joiners, eliminating the existing lay of piping that is causing the consistent leaks. So this has been costing some money annually to replace this, which I believe it's an estimate of $25,000 was spent in 2022 to fix these fixes. So we don't want to continue paying those annual maintenance costs. So the work consists of the following. So pump all the existing brine, charge into StarTex the storage tanks on site, remove all circuits from the header, which we have seen too long coming from the header, and we will cut the appropriate length, install the poly piping with the new adapters, and then, yeah, with all the new stainless steel hose clamps and all that kind of stuff. So the work will consist of just under a few weeks per floor. Yeah, so that's going to cost $100,000, and we're going to fund it from the arena reserve. But really, the primary reason is this huge cost in our maintenance budget annually to fix these leaks.
And it comes down there, when they replace the headers before, the angles that all the fittings have to go just because of some variation. It wasn't probably done really well, but it's constantly, they're constantly chasing brine leaks there, so.
So how many headers are there?
There's a header for each floor, like for each arena surface, and there's, I don't know, multiple of the little fittings that go across it. I don't know how many are on each.
Is 100,000 enough? Because I read here 36,000 per header.
Yeah, so there's two, so we're erring on the side of caution. There's probably 40 per ice surface, and by the time we get to doing it, 100 has built in a little bit of contingency already.
Costs as well.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't come to 100,000, that money will go back into the reserve? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
We only spend what?
Okay, there's one more item at the arena that we'll be looking for, and that is some exterior cameras. So 5 additional cameras we want to add to the exterior of the arena, north and west facing to monitor activities in those areas. All other areas of the facility are on the camera system. However, with the addition of the new outdoor rink and dehumidifiers at the rear of the arena, additional cameras are needed to cover those areas as traffic will now increase. So the cost for that is $7,000 and looking to fund from the arena reserve. Okay. So there's only one more project that we are looking to add this year, and this is some maintenance repairs at the Aquatic Center. So the Aquatic Center has been reviewed to identify minimum necessary maintenance and repair work to extend the life of the facility for approximately 5 years when the facility is intended to be replaced. The proposed repairs will extend the life of the building shell, allowing for alternate future uses. So this is a high priority as the temperature.
That's for the air conditioning.
Oh, okay. Okay. So we are looking at replacing the roof, and that's going to be costing $600,000. So that is the brunt of this project. Some exhaust extensions for $20,000. So we're going to, and we'll also be replacing the entry doors for $100,000, and the AC units for the lobby or party room is $10,000. So, and we did have some requests from party rentals. So we had party rentals asking for fans for the party room because it was just got way too hot in that room, right? So. Okay, so the total cost for this project in total is $730,000. We would be looking to use our federal gas tax grant, or it's now called the CCBF grant, in the amount of $470,000, with the balance coming from the pool reserve. I think that had about 230,000, and then the balance from that coming from the general cap reserve. Any questions on that?
Yikes. When we're looking at a new pool, reality is like, when do we kind of have an idea? Is it going to be 3 years down the road? I'm just thinking of the building itself and communications to the public on doing this work. Everybody's going to look at the number. I know the federal gas tax grant, that's a good deal. Like, we'll be able to offset that. But I'm thinking about communications with the public and how the future utilization of that building, and how we can really show our citizens the importance of upkeep, but as well as the potential of a building that may transition to something else in the future. So how long?
Yeah, or Todd can answer. I guess the discussion has sort of been that, you know, we're probably 2 to 3 years out starting construction of the pool, and then that pool's gonna be 18 plus months to build, so we probably need at least 5 years of operation out of the existing pool.
Yep, and I'm thinking of it, this is a good thing, we have to keep it running, we don't want people to go to Olds or Red Deer, wherever, but I really think it's important for the communications for us is to explain why we're doing it, because people are gonna be negative no matter where we go, and that communications of the importance of keeping the pool open, but also the future of the building. You don't want to implode something like that. There's utilization that we could do with it, and I think that's where I'm coming from.
CEO Becker?
Yeah, Mayor Barkley, during your operational budget review, there's a slide regarding debenture. So it really depends on how you wish to advance the operational budget. If you agree with administration's recommendation to build in that debt financing component of 3.75.
Yes, so it's 3.75 for the next 3 years, but only 1.75 is part of the debt.
Yeah, so, and then this piece is, you know, administration needs to justify the recommendation. So we anticipate this facility would have a post-pool use. When I see this roof replacement, you know, certainly can speak to that, but that's a infrastructure, that's a structured piece you want to maintain. Roof is your integrity of your whole system. Can you get away with leaving the doors as they are? Certainly, you know, Director Jenkins can speak why we need them or why it could wait. But yeah, certainly we want to probably minimize investments to allocate to the pool, but we don't want to, I guess we need to balance, because you don't want to under-resource this facility as it has been for a long time. We're trying to catch up is really what we're trying to do.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wing? You had your hand up.
Thank you. CAO Becker just basically said what I would have liked to have said is this is an important community asset regardless of what happens inside of it at this point in time. So for right now, it's going to maintain as an aquatic center, but moving forward, there are lots of opportunities relative to this particular building that I believe things like the roof and exhaust and, you know, proper temperature control is just good stewardship of the building for us looking into the future. So I would support this. Thank you.
Yeah, good comments. Don't think we're going to bulldoze the building at any time, so need to look after it. Councillor Bates?
Totally agree with what was just said by both councillors. It makes me wonder, we've been doing some patching for years. Do we need to go back and look at our records and see if we're going to get a few other surprises here in the next, because we did something 6 years ago that was supposed to last 7 years. Some of it will be the pool equipment. Some, you know, I doubt it's the roof because we're looking at it now, but there may be some other heating, there may be other stuff in that pool that is getting near its end of life of the repair that we did temporarily a few years ago. Those are the things I think we should make sure we know what else is ahead of us in the next 2 or 3 years at least. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and so we do have quite thorough condition assessment reports on the pool. And then working with our IPD group, had them go through and sort of underscore some of those items, you know, the roof, those types of things, as to what really needs to be done to get through that 5 years. But yeah, as we understand, is it 5 years, is it 7? You know, how that long-term plan for keeping it operational is gonna go.
Mayor Barkley. And just to make comment to add into that and really commend the work of the maintenance team to really get things up to speed on our asset management, but our life cycling. We suffered with that a few years ago on staff just putting Band-Aid on. They weren't really given the resources to really advance, you know, protecting the infrastructure to what it should be. So we have to catch up, but through the work of the director and through Trish and staff, they've advanced that data collection and are making the proper investments and not just patching pieces of tile. They're doing it properly from my perspective.
Okay, so that's all of the projects that we're asking here today. We can move on to the next slide. So we did add a few just capital considerations for council that we discussed and haven't added in. So the new potential dog park parking lot has a cost of approximately $80,000. The cemetery upgrades in the Dodds Lake parking lot, we don't really have a total cost yet, but know that those kind of are on the radar and important projects that are coming up. Security cameras for the pool and for Diamond 7 is a cost of approximately $25,000. And the Highway 54 crossing, so we did put in the trail upgrade in this year. So Highway 54 crossing can happen as soon as that portion is completed. It does have a cost of $150,000, so likely we would put it in 2024's budget. But
Can you explain the crossing, Erica, what that would look like?
Sure. So we would, in consultation with transportation, look at, it would be the bars across the highway. So we'd have to have consultation with them in regards to, because of the high loads that go through there, go through some extensive design and look at that, but it would be a signalized crossing. As well, at the same time, we would, you know, work with transportation on a speed reduction for that section as well, so.
So when we put the trail in, Director Kennedy, will that signal to Alberta Transportation to reduce the speed at that point in time, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily. It would just be, I think it's based on the report that we had done, it's kind of that steps to making. We get the trail in, we get the sidewalk in, then we make that application again back to them, but we have that report that helps us now support our request versus previously in the past we've made letter requests, but now we do have a documentation that actually was done by them.
Okay.
So it definitely helps us with getting that further along.
So would you foresee traffic lights at that intersection at all, or?
That would be further,
The-
I think, review.
Yeah, the speed really concerns me, and, you know, having people walk across that highway at 100 kilometers an hour and even 80 is
Yep.
dangerous. And
Mayor Barkley, when we met with the AT, the regional office in Red Deer, there was interest. We talked about safety and economics, and I know some of the numbers at that time didn't really justify a few things, but there is acceptance of them for that consideration. Highly, I think it's like my judgment on the conversation is looked favorable to have a speed reduction plan put
Definitely.
in place.
but like, how do you get to the point where traffic lights go in?
Exactly.
So typically, and as part of the Bella Vista development as well as the Southwest, there's traffic impact assessments that are done based on traffic counts and projected traffic that warrant certain levels of signalization on that, based on sort of the standards that Alberta Transportation operates on. Bella Vista would be almost built out before they would need significant signalization at that intersection. So that was part of the process to get them to do the intersection evaluation, at least to identify that, yes, there are people crossing the road, so this is a safety issue. So as much as the number of vehicles doesn't warrant the intersection upgrade, the presence of pedestrian traffic will get us the pedestrian crossing. And I believe it's a 70-kilometer speed is what that report recommends once everything's in place.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Do you have your hand up, Councillor Wing? Different hand, not the yellow hand.
I'm waving at the crew that's doing the snow removal on my street right now, but I actually do have a question. So I have a question about timing, and I wonder if it's appropriate now or if I should wait to bring up another, not large capital consideration, but I think something that just needs a little bit of attention and some time and a little bit of money, but and it's relative to the tourism office where the chamber is right now currently. So I like I said, I don't know whether it's appropriate for me to just talk about this now or if you'd like me to wait until later.
No, you can go ahead, Councillor Wing, and do you want to use this time, Director Vickers, where we can maybe talk about some other
Absolutely.
ideas? Okay,
you betcha.
go ahead, Councillor Wing.
Thank you. So the chamber, especially in the last few months, has been doing some extensive work. The chamber board has been doing some extensive work inside the building, and it's old. There's no doubt about it. It's aging, and quite honestly, it's been very well used. So it needs, number one, it needs some attention from the chamber, and we're not trying to pass that responsibility over to the town at all. So it needs a really good cleaning. It needs to be painted, and the chamber board is like, yeah, well, we can go in and paint it. And it's like, well, hold on, it's not our building. So let me talk to the town about whether you want volunteers doing that kind of work or how that works. But it does need a little bit of work. It needs some flooring work and some of that basic infrastructure upgrade. So as I said, not a huge amount of money, certainly a group of volunteers that are willing to do some of the work, but just wondering where that sits within this conversation and then what the next steps would be.
CEO Becker, Director Vickers, somebody?
This is start.
Anybody?
Somebody?
Mayor Barkley, Councillor Wang, I think just the identity of the requirements. I know we really haven't had access to the facility. I know we go on as required, but we have not, I'm not sure if we've added it to our plan, but certainly requires further dialogue. And maybe, yeah, I'm not sure what to suggest. Maybe there's a slight adjustment to our operational budget to do the immediate needs. Might be the best way, a couple, $2,000 to $5,000 perhaps. Director Jenkins, I'm not sure if you have any thoughts, but.
Yeah, I would think, take a look and see, if it's flooring or paint and things that we can likely, it's not a huge facility or a huge building, so it's not a ton of flooring, and whether it's the beginning of a larger conversation about the suitability of that building as the chamber tourist booth office, or is it something we need to start looking at, coming up with a different location or different model there?
Okay. Well, what I'll do then is I'll ask the board to put together a business case outlining what needs to happen. Again, just didn't want a group of volunteers doing something or altering something that we don't have the right to do because we don't even really have a lease. So we'll put something together and bring it in, and we'll get that conversation started. So thank you for that.
No neon green paint, right?
Oh, come on.
I know. So, and just to add on what you were mentioning yesterday, Councillor Wing, with some additional bench, picnic tables, et cetera, down at the new playground outdoor rink area. And I would like to, I realize a permanent building would probably not on the schedule right now, but I would like to see us take a look, and even if, I don't know if there's ATCO buildings or something that could be used down there for washroom, skate changing, indoor shelter. I mean, we now have a, what's it, $300,000 outdoor rink that is beautiful, and I think we need something better than just a bench to change skates on. And I realize that this year is a bit tight with the budget, but I would love to see us look at something even permanent down there at some point in time.
I agree. I
To
agree.
use with baseball in the summer to make sure there's washrooms and change rooms and. Sorry, Councillor Heistan?
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. I would agree with Councillor Wing on the building, taking a look at the building and see what the asset is and see if we could improve it. But I also agree with Director Jenkins as to the suitability of it. I know that some communities may or may not have tourist booths these days because of apps and technology and all those things. And I don't know if that's if that's part of our moving forward, but I think that assessing that building itself and that piece in our community it's always been in an awkward spot. And I don't know the numbers offhand that individuals come in. I can remember 30 years ago, this is 32 years ago, I actually worked in the tourist booth for 2 summers. And a lot of people came golfing. I could tell, a majority of the people were rolling through for golf. So is there a fit? Maybe. And I would agree with the park, the new park that we have by the arena is making it, having those areas to sit down in that. But I would agree with Mayor Barkley as well. Thanks.
Does anyone have anything else to add onto the?
Can I just add
Sorry,
one?
Councillor Wing,
comment?
yeah. Mhm.
Thanks, Councillor Heistad, for those comments. Certainly, little independent tourist booths like that are becoming fewer and far between. We're not connected to Tourism Alberta. We don't work at that level at all. And you're right, there's so much access online that the question, there might be a bit of usage just because of the proximity to the town's wastewater and trailer dump facility, but nowadays it is really minimal. But the other concern, and this is something that we've talked about in the last few months with the chamber, once we found out that there was actually a group of volunteers coming in and accessing that building that we didn't know about, and that's around protection of private information. And so the conversation then also was, well, maybe we need to actually put up a wall and divide that building, which isn't very big, but divide it so that all of the chamber's operating equipment and confidential documents, payroll information, like all of that stuff would be in a part of that building that other groups and other volunteers just simply wouldn't be able to access. Like, it's quite stunning if you think that people come into that building and have access to everything. So I think the usability of the building, the purpose of the building, and where the chamber might be better served or whatever is definitely an important part of this conversation moving forward.
I would agree, and privacy number one, and as well as making sure people are safe. I always found it wasn't a very safe for any of our volunteers, and that was like 30 years ago as well. But we do have a lot of downtown space that is readily available for possibly the chamber, or maybe there's opportunities there that it gives new life to downtown, and there's always a gap with rental space. So. Thanks.
And marry that with some of the initiatives in the CED plan.
Yeah.
What the community needs from a space perspective. Yeah, I think it's definitely a good, timing is everything, and this is a good time. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm saying already what's been stated already, just what is the relationship and where is the chamber going with their vision, but the alignment with the town. I think there's some good energy going between the two entities or organizations. Probably minimizing any major investment to that current facility until we understand where are we going and who's doing what, and new executive director coming in too. But certainly cover the bases, but I would not invest a whole lot in that facility until we understand where the chamber wishes to go and what is the role of the town in that vision.
So does anyone have anything else they'd like to add to the "we like this" list and "not likely to get" list?
That's a good
See you,
question, Mayor
Becker.
Barkley, and so you can certainly add in.
What was a good question?
Yeah, for sure.
What we want?
Yeah, what do you want? But what's on this list that may not fit for you, and where do you want to land on your reserves and your funding, knowing that MSI has dropped? You know, I think we're on a kind of a net balance on reserves in and out. You know, that's the question I posed in the introduction is, where do you want to land at, you know, into your budget on the reserve side? Is it a depletion? My recommendation is, and going into that administratively, is don't deplete. At least at the worst is maintain that level of net, and the best case scenario is you're adding in. But it's certainly your budget. But where do you want to land? Adding in more projects to make that balance is then you're taking away from what's presented to you on the capital side. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe what we'll do is take a 15-minute break or 20-minute break or something, and we can come back and kind of chat over like even operational stuff. We talked about things like DocuSign yesterday, and you know, a reminder in the reserve list, $1.5 million increase to reserves is land sales. So, you know, that's not 100% guaranteed either. So that's something to keep in mind. And if that wasn't there, we would have about $1.5 million decrease to reserves. So, okay, so we'll just take a quick break and come back maybe 10:30.
right, Mayor Barkley, so would you like to take a minute to discuss any other capital items, or would you like to go through the operating budget presentation again, and we can kind of go over and see if there's anything specific you guys want to talk about on each sheet, in each department, items to cut or not cut?
Does anyone have any more items?
And we can come back to capital
Okay.
after too as well. We can go through the operating ones.
Okay,
kinda-
let's do that then.
Okay.
Director first.
So did you want to open it?
Question. Are we going in camera too? Like, are we gonna go back into camera for some of the discussion?
Yeah, I'd recommend, Mayor Barkley, at some point, council goes back into in-camera.
Okay.
Mayor Barkley, before we get into Director Vickers, I appreciate the org chart that we got yesterday. Is there any privacy issues around actually putting names to those positions? And the reason I ask that is, everybody seems to know who we are, but at times I don't know everybody that's working in your office.
Mayor Barkley, Councilor Harrison, we certainly can do introductions. I don't think there's anything wrong putting names for internal uses if that's required, but certainly we can introduce you to the front office staff if you like. It's really up to you. If you wish to have names, that's great, but right now they're not included.
Okay, yeah, no, as long as, yeah, because I got a memory like, it's good, but it's short, right? So if, yeah, introductions are fine for me. I don't know about the rest of the council, but that would be great. Maybe we could take some time on Tuesday or whatever, if, to have them come in and introduce themselves. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I think we'll get started on slide 15. That's the general government slide, and that will go with the first tab in your binder. So this department is general government. This is primarily where our taxes come from and our franchise fees. So the property tax revenue is set to be at $8,382,401. That does include the 4% tax increase that we had discussed earlier. It also includes special tax bylaw revenue in the amount of $10,275. That is for 61st Avenue and 37th Street. Our franchise fee revenue comes out of here. So ACO Gas is $787,000, and Fortis franchise fee revenue is $1.656 million. Now, in a way to balance the budget, we can look at increasing franchise fees. We are at 17% right now, and we can go up to a maximum of 20%. And I did indicate that on the PowerPoint, what each percent would give us in the budget. So if we go up on 1%, that would give us $97,000, 2%, $194,000, 3%, $292,000. Our transfer to reserve currently for this department is $210,275. So that's the $10,275 for the special tax bylaw, which must go directly back into the wastewater reserve, as well as $200,000 to be earmarked to go towards the facility reserve, which is intended for the new aquatic center, or what that may look like at the end of the day. If we choose to further increase taxes, each further percent that we increase will give us just over $83,000 in additional revenue. And we did see an overall assessment increase for residential and non-residential. So residential saw a 3.178%, and non-residential saw 0.938%. So that equates out to about $26 million for residential and about $5.5 million for non-residential. So is there any line item you'd like to further?
Councillor Bates?
Well, I'm going to give you a couple of comments, and I guess they're like this, they butt heads. As I've said before, I don't like to see us look at increasing the franchise fees, and if we're within 3% of the maximum, to me, it's just, it doesn't put us in a good place relative to the other communities, and I look at our power of place, and if power of place is meant to be that you pay the maximum power price that you possibly can, that wouldn't be a good image. And then I look over at the other side, and if there's assessment increases of 3.178 on residential, then they're already gonna see a 3% tax increase before we start. I mean, that's how they're gonna look at it.
Yeah, a portion of those properties would be new construction, primarily in the Bella Vista area, that, based on when they were
Oh,
constructed.
I'm sorry, so this is the total.
This is total assessment increase.
Some
so-
of it would be the value increase, but some of it would be more properties.
Correct, yes,
Okay,
that's
thank
correct.
you.
But
Thank-
yes, some
thank you
would
for that.
still see an increase, absolutely.
Yeah, and I know I will in my, and I'm not, because then we had a couple of expensive properties sell, and that tends to bring the whole territory up. I understand how it works.
Yeah.
So those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay. On the next slide, we talk about how in this budget, we built in some debt capacity for the future. So in 2023, we do have a 4% increase overall, and in years 24 to 27, we did a 2% increase across the board for internal increases. But then we also did increase a 1.75 into the budget for debt only. So that gives a total increase of 3.75 in 24, 25, and 26, and then tapering back off to just a 2% increase in 27. So by doing that additional 1.75% increase, it increases that transfer to reserve. So in 24, 145,000, and then it compounds. So in 25, it's 300,000, and then in 26, it's 460,000. And by taking that and including it to the 450,000 that we already have in our budget into the facility reserve, by 2026, that equates out to $910,900. And then that would cover the estimated payment for the aquatic center or pool or whatever that's going to look like, with our estimated numbers that we'd kind of gone over in the past. So by 2026, we could have the debt built into our budget with some fairly reasonable tax increases. So is there any questions or discussion on that? Is this how we want to proceed, or would you like me to take those out?
You know, it's so hard, right, to project future. I mean, we're just in a year this year that we haven't seen in a generation for sure. Like with inflation at, what's it at, 6.9, I think still is the headline rate anyways. And so, you know, you normalize that somewhat. How does that impact everything? And I don't think we're out of the woods yet on some inflationary pressures, certainly on certain materials and items. And so there's so many things up in the air right now, I think, with so many unknowns. And, but we do need to build, if we are going to do the aquatic center, we know how that's impacted as well with inflationary pressures, and keep kicking the can down the road on that aquatic center. And so I think we need to do something to build in the debt capacity for sure.
And Mayor Barkley, the budget will still come to you next year, so
Yeah.
even though we're tentatively saying this is what we're gonna do next year, you still fully approve it next year anyway. So based on what happens throughout 2023, if inflation is still high, we can adjust this as we see fit next year.
And I'd like to bring up my favorite controversial topic is the special tax assessment on 37th and 61st. So I wonder, as we build out that industrial park, you know, there's going to be more traffic using 61st for sure. And how do you feel as the business owner along there paying for a good road for everybody else to use? You know, I always go back to either we're a community or we're not a community. So I know that's not a decision we have to make till April, but there's my annual plug. So any other comments about tax increases? Councillor Dunham?
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. Earlier this morning, I had a conversation with someone at work regarding the tax increase, and they have a young family. And what they imparted on to me was that they're willing to pay the more tax. They want the facilities here in town. They said that they're tired of having to travel to Red Deer, and that the fact that with what their expenses are to go out of town would cover any tax increase they would actually see on their property. So they were very adamant about the fact is that to push for that if this is what the town wants, and this is what so much of our citizenry has spoken about, is that, you know, yes, there are certain ones that don't. There's a lot of financial pressures for a lot of families out there, but, you know, for those younger families, it's really, really something that they're looking forward to, as well as a number of seniors. So it's nothing that we ever want to do, but it's something that we, you know, I'm looking at it that we have to do to fulfill what a lot of our promises were and what the community is asking for.
Councillor Heisted?
Yeah, I just want to, it's been a good morning. The town increase for 2023, so that's a total increase of 4%. That's what you're projecting, right?
That's correct. That's what's included in this budget, is that 4%.
That's all in, that's not franchise fees,
That's just tax increase.
that's just tax increase, because the previous slide was the 1, 2, and 3, right? But it's 4% because of the, yeah.
Yeah, the 1, 2, and 3.
No, and that's what I just want to make sure that we're clear. I'm
Yep.
clear.
That's the tax increase that's already included in this
Yeah,
budget.
because there was some things that we're looking at not having
Yes.
as well.
Correct.
And that's why I wanted to go into camera.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Director Brickers, can you just remind us again, or remind me, that how much impact will the 4% have? You had an example, I think, of a $330,000 home.
Yeah, $322,000 home would see about, it was $760 a month is what the increase would be.
Okay,
Just
thank
for
you.
taxes alone.
Yeah.
And just for clarity, the budget demonstrates a 6.4% budget increase currently.
Well, only because we have a deficit and we haven't,
what I mean,
we
yeah.
haven't funded that deficit,
Exactly.
yes, so, yes.
Does that include the deficit?
So that 4% does not. If we want to include the deficit and fund the deficit, we need to go to a 6.4, 6.5 increase.
Yeah.
Or we need to cut services, we'll get to that.
Or reserve,
Or reserve,
whatever,
or,
yeah.
yes,
That was,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, so we need to decide what we're gonna pull in, pull out, and
Right.
there's probably some things we wanna add, and
That's
some
correct.
things that we talked about taking out yesterday as
That's
well,
right.
so we're delaying till the next year. Okay,
and that's where I wanted to ask as well. We could pull from specific reserve. I commented on that yesterday, because there is money in those reserves. Don't want to spend it all, but I also want to be clear on the needs and wants. What everything came forward, there was a lot of ask there. So, you know, like, and we want to do what's right culturally and community wise, capacity within our infrastructure, all those things. So I think it's just so that we're brutally clear, like the management team that I see is just tell us, like, this is a need or a want. That's how I'm looking at it. And that's, you know, when I came in back to council is we just need to know what we need now and what can be shelved. That's how I'm looking at a lot of this stuff, because there was a lot that came up today, a lot more than yesterday, I thought. No, I know, but it's.
Councillor Wing?
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. Yeah, for me, this is a real balance, and then the communications piece of it is really important. So when I'm thinking about Councillor Dunham's comments about raising taxes so that people don't have to leave the community, I understand that, although I understand that. Raising taxes today is not going to put anything new into the world of this community. But if we can talk to people about a tax increase so that we can start to save the money so that in a few years our facilities or our community quality of life is improved, that's important to me. But it's also then important to me to be able to say we're going to save, but we've also reduced the things that we've decided that we either don't need or that we can delay for a period of time from a strategic perspective. So the communication strategy around this is going to be really important. I'm happy to have the conversation about raising taxes if we're saving the money to do something with as we move forward with the rest of the work. around our facilities, but we still need to address the fact that I think we have things in the budget that we just can put off for this year. Thank you.
Okay, so just a reminder, we have, based on 4%, we have a $200,000 deficit that we're trying to figure out how to
Yes.
fix.
Okay, so is there anything else you wanted to see on this one? This does include $90,000 for carbon tax costs. This covers our school requisition, which is really just an in and out on our budget. We charge it to the residents, collect it, and then remit it back to the province quarterly. Okay, if not, we can go to slide 21, and that would be for council.
Director Vickers, do you have the comparison of the various tax rates with different communities at all, or
Oh, yeah, we can go up to that one as well.
just to take a look?
So I don't have the tax rate, sorry, I just have the projected tax increases.
Okay,
So that's slide 18. So this is just what, we did a little bit of research in the past week or two and called around to see what, these are just proposed or projected tax increases. These aren't necessarily approved yet. Some are, but some are not yet. So you can see that they are quite significant across the province. We do have a few lower ones, Town of Rocky Mountain House. So they are doing 2%, but they're also doing a 2% franchise fee increase. So overall, they did want to do a 4% increase as well. Clearwater County is doing 2%. You have City of Fort Saskatchewan doing 3%. Olds hasn't decided. They're doing anywhere between 3 to 5. You have Ponoka, Lethbridge, Edmonton, all doing 4. City of Medicine Hat also doing 4, 4.5. There's quite a few. Calgary, St. Albert, Black Falls is doing 4.5. And then you even see someone up to 12.5 increase.
so surrounding areas, would it be possible this afternoon to kind of know where we're at? I know we're very competitive, particularly in the non-residential. We're, you know, other than Olds, we're probably 20% below anybody else. I think residential-wise, we're middle of the pack, are we? Pretty much.
So you're wanting the mill rates for like Penhold, Olds, Bowden?
Red Deer County,
The county, yes, please.
Sylvan Lake, and Lacombe, if that's not too difficult to do.
Okay, we can get that information.
So for my purposes, I certainly want to see those, but I think I just throw the caution out that unless you know some of the other stuff that goes with, that they didn't increase last year, they did it, you know, some of that other stuff is important. And also the value of the homes in their municipalities, because we know full well, lots of people build in Penhold because they end up with a cheaper house and then they can't afford the taxes. I mean, I hear that on the side, and but especially young people. So you gotta try and look at the whole picture.
Yeah, you do. I guess I was looking at it more from a competitive standpoint, and
No, I want to know that.
particularly for
I want
non-res.
to know all those facts as well.
Yeah, and mill rate to mill rate is, it's not quite the same. Like it's 6.4 is not a 6.4 in Lacombe. Yeah, and you might want to look at equalized assessment, but it's, I know we're on the median for res. We're below the median on non-res compared to communities of our stature. But we'll pull that up and see what that looks like.
Okay, we'll see what we can pull and bring to you by after lunch.
Mayor Barkley, through to the director as well. Yesterday when we were discussing maybe what we want to put back in and taking out, is there a way that we could perhaps get those up on the screen as well at some point, just to show one column of what we want to put back in, what we're removing, then sort of how that might balance things out? Please and thank you.
Sure.
Thanks.
I also want to reflect back on what I heard from Councillor Hysted. Like, some of the things you presented, what is the degree of want versus the degree of need? Because I think that is important.
I agree.
To me, to the question, it's a balance. Do you want to just remove all your capital and we would survive? Yes. Do you want to remove everything proposed administratively or considered of council? We can do that and we'd still survive. So where do you want to land? You have a target of 4. Councilor may mention, well, that's a target. We didn't have any information at the target. Maybe it's 6.4, maybe it's 3.2. But where it's a balance of where do you want to land and what is your highest priority? Because ultimately we're going to survive if you do 0. But where do you want to be? You're demonstrating the ambition to do a lot of things. I'm guessing, but it's likely that'll maintain itself for 2023. So where do you want to be? It's confirm that, and we'll work into the resources to get there. But we can go through that line as Councillor Dunham requested. Yeah, we can go without. I'll poke at it. I'm not saying we should do it. We can remove arts policy. Like, that's a hard poke because I know that's a priority. I'm poking at Councillor Heisted a little bit, but you don't have to do it. But and we'll survive without it because we're still advanced, and we can go with less events. But I'm not seeing you want to do less events. You can play with COLA. So it's really a balance of what you want and what we can help you with.
Yeah, and yeah, I think we need to know, right? For me, sitting here, I look at 48th Street. The sidewalk is on one side. You don't need it on the other side, right? Like it went up, it's done. $100,000 for a box, the truck. Do we need it? You know, those are the things that I really think. If you're gonna 210 or 220, this is where I was talking about the paper clips, right? We can count the paper clips, but the big items that we need, like water and sewer and all those things, I'm not ready to hit an ejection seat on those because those are things that we need. So, thanks.
Councillor Wing?
Thanks, Mayor Barkley. I think what I appreciated or have appreciated about our process is that we actually started it off at that very strategic level. And I think that we affirmed our values as a council and as an organization. So we said several times yesterday, you know, our biggest asset is our people. And so we would want to do whatever we can. I do have to kind of smile because inflation, although it's bigger than it's been, is certainly not even close to being as big as it. Say we need to stretch out the timeline around implementation, or we need to address what we're able and willing to do this year as opposed to over the course of our strategic plan. So from my perspective, maintain what we need to from an infrastructure perspective. The nice to haves, I will rely on our administration to say, you know, we could probably wait for later on in the year, or we could probably wait a year or two, whatever. Keep our people intact, build where we need to protect our biggest asset, and then let's go back to being strategic and to our strategic plan and figure out what is doable from those other bodies of work. Thank you.
So would it be safe to say, CEO Becker, that what we see in the capital budget are things that are needed? You know, I don't think I've ever seen our administration team put things in the budget that are not kind of necessary, and we need to keep moving things forward, and we see what happens when we don't. So the Aquatic Center is, I think, a prime example of that, and you know, kind of been neglected for a long time, and now we're playing catch up. And I go back to our budget objectives: to advance council's strategic priorities, provide high quality municipal services for residents, maintain competitive property taxes, which I think we're trying to do, and then protect the organizational health. And that kind of, to me, sums up what we've seen. And now it's kind of a matter of picking a few things, or not putting as much into reserves to make up that 200,000. If we want to add in A, B, and C, or delete something, then we need to find that spot and figure out how to do it, likely without more of a tax increase, I'm thinking.
Yeah, Mayor Barkley, it's on the capital side, I think we need to justify, so, you just pose the question, once we get back to that list is, okay, Director Kennedy, Director Jenkins, if we don't do this, what does that mean? You know, higher maintenance, or we're welding the box, like, so, can we do without, yes, no, we need to justify the recommendation, so as soon as you see our list is, push the question, and we need to respond to it. But we are really diligent on our budgeting. We don't jack it up to have you rip it down. We try to work within the means and the financing available to do it. And going in is, let's balance out the reserves piece. We know, you know, just on the status of what's going on, we know we don't want to do a big depletion, especially on MSI, the unknown of LGFF. So, but just pose the question, and if some things need to be deferred, we need to explain the impact of that decision.
Yeah, and I think going back to what Councillor Wing said, you know, with respect to MSI, and, you know, that is something, I mean, it's not just MSI, it's also, we're now getting an assistant fire chief. Well, part of that reason is because so much is getting downloaded that shouldn't be downloaded on the municipality. So, you know, that level of government is having a huge impact on every municipality right now, and so I, you know, that's part of this equation too.
Yeah. And just to add in, Mayor Barkley, part of the decision making too is anticipating future expenditure. So the work of those three there is, okay, let's bite off this now, because we foresee in the next 2 to 3 years we need resources to do this. So we look beyond just the current budget year. So let's do 46, or let's get the box, because we know on the fleet side this is coming in 2 years. So it's a multi-year anticipation of expending our resources.
Mayor Barkley, I just have a question regarding human resources, human capital. As I go through this, I see one that really jumps out at me, and that, of course, is the assistant fire chief. How many others are there? And if there's an increase, is it because we can't keep up with the services that we're operating now, or is it to add more services and we need additional people to do those?
Are you talking about just specifically for the assistant fire chief?
No, I'm talking throughout the organization.
Throughout the whole budget?
Pardon me?
Do you want to go in camera to speak about?
No, I think we can
human-
speak.
It's okay, okay.
Just generally on,
Okay.
so what we have is assistant fire chief, and then we have the summer students, and then we have a
The
intern.
Yes.
So I think we can, I'll let you guys speak on why you need additional park summer students, and then of course the intern.
Yep, so I guess I'll try to tackle that one. So, in regards to summer students, well, I guess, yeah, we're looking for four additional summer students. Because of the resources and the service level that we tried to trim last year as tight as we could, that we thought we could manage. And it was pretty evident by the end of the year, that wasn't enough. So, you know, is it 2, is it 4? You know, we evaluate what was missed last year and where did it end up. So I think that's where we've come to that number is, okay, well, let's target that in order to maintain that service level, the expectation. So that's for summer students. The other one was the assistant fire chief, I guess.
Yeah, that one, I think Councillor Harrison is good there, but I just add into your comment, Steve, as taking on Bella Vista, and more specifically, the industrial park, the additional flower beds.
Additional areas, you know, obviously we have more space. We've got the Southwest Industrial is a big one. You know, yeah, we've redeveloped and everything, but we need to maintain that area because it all goes to weeds. So now we've got a 60-acre subdivision that we need to maintain. Bella Vista is a good one. We're taking over now the mowing, which also means though bed maintenance within Bella Vista. So there's weed whipping, there's weed pulling, there's mowing, the planting beds, you know, is another good example. As we get these things, which are great, we still need to maintain them and keep all the other ones as well that we've had in here and try and not drop those off, which I think in the past we've found that we've been reactive towards the planting specifically, our planting beds, and a lot have been falling off because we've been trying to keep on the high vis areas, and then it comes to us towards the end of the year, so we don't really notice it at first. And then at the end of the year, we're really struggling to try and get those back up, because now we're doing a complaint basis work. And so we're trying to really get it to a level, an equal level, and it's a tough one to try and balance that, because it's, the 2, the 4. So I guess in regards to, is it a want or a need? We feel like we try and base the numbers on need specifically, and we're not trying to make it so that it's easy on everybody. It's just, this is where we think we need to be to maintain a service level.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Director Kennedy.
So could we, while we're on that subject then, could we hear one more time about the intern? Yeah, thank you.
Yep, so, yeah, the only other position is a municipal intern. So the province provides $60,000 towards the salary and costs of a position for 18 months. The position would be primarily to do with land use and economic development, so that economic development strategy that has been adopted. We don't necessarily have any additional resources to carry out the implementation steps within that, a lot of which are event-focused, public participation, sort of outreach-focused. The intern also, we identified as sort of a cost-effective way to sort of backfill our planning department too, if our developments on the north side of Dodds Lake, if Laybon moves forward, that all of a sudden the demands that we haven't seen for a number of years materialize, that we're able to respond to that as well.
So do you see that intern position turning into a full-time position at the end of the year and a half? Like working into your organization?
At this point, again, with the economic development strategy that identifies that move towards an arm's length entity for economic development, if that is the way we end up going, I would think that we're going to end up looking at figuring out how to hire an executive director or something like that. If that isn't the way we end up going, I would think we probably will end up in a point where we need some sort of internal economic development officer or person that way.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know, my opinion, I think that's such an important position for the town right now. I mean, how long has it been since we've had an EDO at the town of Innisfail?
I don't think we ever have.
Years, right? Like years and years, and especially with hopefully the pressures that are coming from housing, the municipal development plan being done again, and it's going to be very, very busy. And having, I guess, been to some events like Economic Development Association events, you're sitting there and you're surrounded by EDOs, but we don't have one. And I think we know how busy Director Jenkins is and everybody else. And if we're going to do this properly, we probably need somebody kind of dedicated to that job. And so hopefully we'll get the grant.
Okay, so are we ready to move on then? And I have started a slide down later in the presentation to talk about what we're removing and what maybe we want to add, so we can kind of visualize it and see it all at the end. So as we go through and as you guys say stuff, I'll just kind of update it and then show you at the end, okay? Okay, so we can go to the council page, which I believe is number 21, Kara. Okay, so we'll talk about council's page here. So we have advertising and promotion, so our fireworks comes out of this line. That did go up a little bit. Looks like 27,500 was last year's number. It actually is 31. Oh no, sorry. Never mind. I was looking at a different number. 27,500 for advertising and promotion. So that covers the fireworks, any community anniversary or birthday celebrations. That's where we would buy that gift for someone who has the 100 birthday or a 60th wedding anniversary. Any sponsorships comes out of this, so anytime someone comes in to request money for a golf sponsorship or sponsoring of a sports player or something like that, that comes out of this budget, as well as the scholarships for, the new scholarship policy comes out of there. So registration fees has increased, so there is $14,000 that's included in that line, kind of $2,000 per member of council for their own personal development, right? So if they want to go to a certain conference, they have kind of their own little budget to manage, right? So you can go to that training course, you can go to that conference, you can go to that meeting. That kind of gives you a little bit of freedom to kind of pick what's important to you and what are your kind of identified priorities as council. And we did have to increase travel and subsistence just to kind of offset that increase in registration fees, so.
So the registration fees, that's like, the increase there, that's like a learning account, right?
Right, yes, it would be each member of council would have $2,000. That's what's kind of set in the budget here. And it would kind of be for you, if you wanted to go to that one conference,
Yep.
then you could choose to do that, right? It's not, we kind of set up, you're still going to AUMA and FCM is still covered in the budget and there's a few other things, but this would be if you know something's coming up and you're like, this really interests me, this is about climate change or this is about whatever else, you can choose to go to that.
Sorry, no. For council for the advertising promotions, did we max out from last year's budget on that?
Yes, normally we go right close, if
Right
not
close,
over
okay,
every year. Yeah.
thank you.
And I know Councillor Mazeros brought up council meetings or that council honorarium section. Is that something you guys wanted to talk about?
You know, I would like at some time, I don't know if it needs to be during budget, but I would really like us to review the remuneration policy because it's so vague.
Okay.
And I've said this before, every month, you're kind of wondering, gee, should this count? You know, and so I think we should really define that. So, you know, it's more transparent for the public, it's more transparent and easy for us to understand.
It is due to be reviewed this summer because it is the mid-council review, so.
Yeah.
And we can make some substantial changes to the policy at that point.
Okay.
Not just the rate, that's we'll get a committee that will come in and talk about
Yeah.
that, but we can do some design to the policy itself at that time.
And then Councillor Maceros, you had a question about the honorarium earlier.
Yeah, it had increased
Yeah.
from last year to this year, primarily due to, there's a portion that would be a COLA, but then a portion would be also considered for just the increased attendance in meetings.
I think, to me, that's an area that we could look at not increasing.
Okay.
Well, I don't know.
think the reality is, from my perception of having been on council, we're busier. We're generally busier, we do more things. We have created a couple of new committees, but we're busier.
We could look at, granted, and I think that needs to, that has to be fair, but I don't know that we necessarily need to have a COLA increase. I'd be willing to discuss that.
Yeah, it would be about $6,000 or so is the COLA portion.
It's not that much.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that too, Councillor Maceros.
I will just say that council did not take a COLA increase last year.
Council never takes a COLA increase. Councillor Wing, you've had your hand up for quite a while.
Thanks, Mayor Barkley. Yeah, so yes, I guess I have to start with what's newest in my mind right now because I might have forgotten something, but definitely do not feel that COLA increase relative to meetings or council salary is required at this point in time. However, reviewing the remuneration policy is important, and council should continue to have the ability to move forward with a COLA increase and not feel guilty about that or not be made to feel guilty about that in the future. It should just be a strategic decision by council to say, yes, we'll increase, or no, we won't. And there's other impactors there as well. I think when we talk about increased meeting time, it's probably a conversation to have a little bit sooner in the process, and that is when we take on new strategic initiatives, understanding what the level of learning or professional development for council will be as we move through that initiative. So when we think about all of the work that we've been doing with the Energy Futures Lab and the transition work, it's imperative for us to have a strong knowledge from both the governance and the operational level, actually, about what this means. This is so new in our community, and for us to be able to position the town and move this community forward, I believe the knowledge gaining and seeking is so important. We wouldn't question the importance of sending council to learn about a change in regulations imposed by the government or anything else. So when we talk about a strategic initiative, resourcing it is important that we do that body of work from the beginning. I have said this before to you, we've talked about this before. This is my one biggest concern about allocating PD or registration fee budgets on to each councillor. It becomes political in communities. I've seen this happen in the city of Red Deer. Every single election it comes up, oh well, which councillors didn't spend their professional development budgets? That must mean that they're better stewards of our tax dollars because they didn't spend money on learning. And that's a really dangerous and slippery slope from my perspective. It's not good enough anymore to be an elected representative and rest on your laurels and not be involved in learning as much as you can at every time the opportunity presents itself. I would rather defend spending the money on professional development than not spending it. Well, thank you.
So on that comment, Councillor Wing, would you rather we just do one-offs when somebody wants to go to something as opposed to having spending accounts for that where, you know, I mean, in other words, if somebody wants to go to something, it's going to come to council and we'll make a motion to allow that person to go.
Well, you know, and that gets to be onerous from a process perspective, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, I think that council perhaps needs to have a little bit more of a proactive conversation about the amount that's budgeted to council every year and do some forecasting and do some planning around what it will look like. And it might mean that next year the amount isn't, it might inhibit us from being really responsive, but if we want to work at that strategic level, maybe we need to talk in advance about what's coming up and what do we need to be investing the money in and who are the people that need to go or whatever. I think it's a process piece, and I think part of the policy review in the spring will really help with that.
So as an example, Director Vickers or CEO Becker, like the Transition Accelerator education that we did, would that fall into a spending, or because that's being done more at organizational level, then we would just bind?
I'd suggest contingency, council contingency, because
Okay.
it's a group,
Yeah.
not your individual
Okay.
training.
Okay, Councillor Bates.
So just listening to that, maybe we're in a transitional situation there where we transition to this spending account. One of the things I've heard from fellow community councilors is they're doing that, some of them. And even some of the things like FCM and AUMA were part of their discretionary uses. So they're over there where these things aren't automatic, and if they want to go, and I had one of them tell me, you know, he goes to AUMA every second or third time because he gets enough out of that, and he hears other people that do go in his council that he gets a rest from. I'm not saying we should do that, but that's kind of I'm hearing this and also trying to think, so what would I do next year? you know, that kind of stuff. It does seem a little awkward that we're biting off that $14,000 right as we're searching for money. That it does seem a little awkward. So maybe we figure out a transitional budget and back to what the mayor said, where maybe we have that pool and we allocate it based on people's wants through discussion for a year, and then you transition to the automatic. I don't know. Just thoughts.
No, good thoughts.
And I personally don't see a need for the COLA. I think, if I remember rightly, that COLA is part of the review that happens every 2 years, and we chose not to take the COLA the last time.
Yeah, so the policy was amended to show that council may receive COLA, and it would be your guys' choice
Right.
annually if you want to take it or not.
Councillor Heistad?
Yeah, as to COLA and that, I think there's further discussion on that. I agree with a lot of the comments that Councillor Wing has to say, and I think that we shouldn't shortchange ourselves as well for education. We've done a lot this year as a group, and especially the accelerator program and, you know, the energy stuff that we are concentrating on. I can remember a time when I was on council where I was prohibited to do anything, period. Like, there was minimal want for me to do anything. I wanted to take the elected officials program, and I got freaking denied, like Shaquille O'Neal denying me. And it was brutal. And I thought, as a young guy wanting to contribute to your community, it's like going cheap. It's like, and I can say it here, it's like Walmart, you know, you go on to get the cheapest product. And I don't think we are the cheapest product. I think that we need to make sure that we're very well educated. We all have our expertise. We have different committees that we need to be up on and learn about them. And I think that truthfully, if the community doesn't like what I'm doing in my position, eject me. Because, no, I'm serious. I'm serious. Like, I think I'm brash enough, and I understand what we do as leaders, is that we're doing the right things. And if people aren't happy with us, we're going to hear about it in 3 years' time. And that's how I look at it, because the world's changed, I think, over the last 10 years, and we shouldn't be afraid of taking on opportunities that are going to benefit our community. And I think that's where I sit. As to reviewing the registration fees, yeah, let's do it. Let's talk about COLA. But let's not shortchange ourselves, because we have been a lot busier than previous councils, and I know that from just watching the previous council. Thank you.
Good comments, Mayor Barkley. The COLA, I know you're looking right now, but it does impact future councils if you don't kind of keep up. On the training piece, I'd recommend you maintain that budget. I do believe you should have a policy framework on what your expectations are, so it's clear. And that way you can communicate to the public too. Serving community has never been a councillor, but the governance side is even more complex than last term. Administration's as complex as ever too, and more things are landing on your plate. So to be able to move our community forward with knowledge is highly recommended. And work outside the boundaries of our community is also very important, to learn and understand what is going on besides what's going on in our important boundaries of Innisfil. So strongly important, I think, that you have the ability to expose yourselves to different things, whether it's transition accelerator or what's coming next in our difficult society. So that's my take, but policy framework could help guide you and explain to the community why you're expanding or why you're not expanding. Yeah, just some comments for your consideration.
Yeah, those are all good comments, and I think I like what Councillor Bates was saying, and I do see other communities here in Central Alberta that have done that. They're not including FCM and Alberta municipalities, and people want to go, then here's your spending account and you can choose to go. I mean, I know FCM is in Calgary the year after next year, so, you know, the cost of that is going to be considerably different than when it's
Yes.
in the Maritimes or
And I'm
Toronto
sure
or Ottawa.
More may want to go to FCM if it's only
Maybe,
Calgary,
yeah, maybe. So, you know, it just gives people flexibility of what they want to do, and the expectation would be, when you go do something, we want to hear about it, we want to know what you've learned, and we want to know how it's moving the community forward. It's not just
Right.
something to go do. So I think that's part of that policy that gets built out, and understanding the expectation coming back as well.
Yes. So we're gonna leave it in for now?
Yeah, maybe we'll leave it in for now, and then maybe when we review things summertime, we can take a look at that and figure it all out. Just less complex to leave it in right now than change it all.
Yes, and likely we would be bringing in a policy to help manage that, right, as well. So we'll start doing some research if this is approved, and then we'll bring in a draft policy likely maybe in January, early February for your review, so.
And thanks for coming.
You're very welcome.
Okay.
Council never takes COLA. Well, that's my comment. I mean, it just looks bad. So don't even build it in. Just build in steps, right?
Right.
That's true.
I'll say on that.
Uh-oh, that's scary.
You can't say it.
You know, and I would also say, like Councillor Heistad's comments, you know, the elected officials program. I mean, if anybody on this council, I'm going to say, wants to do something and advance their knowledge, then please don't hesitate to step up and ask for that, because I'm all about learning and education and making us all better, and so.
Did we want to touch on the COLA part, or do we want to talk about that at kind of the end? Or,
I'm in for no COLA, and I understand what CEO Becker's saying, but
Are we nailing that one out of the park, or do we have time to reflect on it, or? Okay,
we can tag it for now as an item that could be taken out, and then we'll discuss it later.
yeah, and the reason why I ask that, I do question, not that the past committees have, I want to look at the structure of that committee that does the remuneration and actually how it's done, as well as the registration fees. I think that if we have more information before us, we can make a better decision.
and just to give some history too, like we have had remuneration committees in the past who have recommended COLA and recommended raises, and we said no because
not
it's
to,
never the
yes.
right time.
Yes.
Right, so,
And I think that's important. It's a good time to say that here now, that we had a good solid recommendation last time, and then it became quite a discussion that, no, we don't want to take that because it looks bad. And I think we ended up taking it, and I took the fall, but anyway, it is something that, as CAO Becker said, that it's no different than your taxes. If you get behind, you get behind. And then it's just due diligence down the road that people are doing the proper thing as they're claiming their expenses and all the other things. If you've got a good structure, then you play to it. And, yeah, and so it's easier to say it now when we're not exactly doing it, but thank you.
yeah, and I'd also really encourage, Councillor Heisett, really encourage people to, you know, I know some of you do, put on your timesheets what is included, what you're doing out in the community that's you're just putting into your base pay. And like I said, I attach an Excel spreadsheet every month to show what I'm doing, and that's part of the base pay. And I think when it comes to remuneration policy, that's such a hard word to say, review, you know, you have that data and you can say, well, look at what all of council is doing now. They're doing all these community events, they're more involved in the community and doing lots of things, and there's data to support whatever we might be looking at changing. So.
I'm good.
Just a comment. I'd like to, my feeling is for the next year that we take COLA out and the remuneration review committee sits in a year here and we'll make a recommendation at the end of that year for council for the next 2 years. So my recommendation would be that, and I'm okay with it, removing it for this year. And then next budget year, when that comes back from the committee, that we address it at that time.
Okay, we can do that for
And,
sure.
and just to comment on the learning account, I just caution that we make that quite known to anybody that's running, that, you know, a lot of people don't want to further their education, so we have to be careful that, you know, we're not forcing somebody into doing something that they don't want to do. There are people in the community that may like to run, that feel that they're educated enough. That would be my caution, that we don't make it so rigid that you have to take this, and this, and this much, so, thank you.
Okay, we can move on to general admin. Should be, I believe, just the next slide. Yeah. So this is kind of our, think about this building, that's kind of what covers this. So first we'll go through just a bit of the revenue side. So anytime someone gets a tax certificate or a FOIP request, that revenue runs through this department. All of our animal licenses and business licenses comes through this department as well. We did increase business licenses up to 92,000, up from 90, just as we're seeing a higher uptake of more businesses in town, which is always a good thing. We do have some rental through TELUS. They have a cell tower in town on one of our buildings, so they do pay a lease fee for that. And then just some miscellaneous revenue for like our interest, our penalties on our accounts receivable, which is quite low, as we don't have a whole lot of receivables that accrue penalties, as they're paid quite regularly. So as for the expenses, so we do have our legal services that come through this department that has increased this year over last year, as we have been just spending. We've seen a higher uptake in spending with our legal services, just when we have issues, and it's just an easier way where we feel like we're taking better care of our bylaws and our policies as we're getting legal opinion on those. Our assessor services is in here as well at $80,220. That is through Wild Rose Assessment Services, and that contract will be coming up due for renewal. I believe it's the end of 2023, so you will see that come due. Our audit fees is $40,000, so we do have our audit through BDO annually, and they're actually already planning to come on December 1st to do our pre-audit for next year already, so we're already in planning stages with them. Our computer maintenance has gone up to $134,000. So in that, for Real IT Solutions, they do all of our IT maintenance across all of our departments, as well as they manage our emails and make sure that our emails are all good and everything there is good. Our financial software, Diamond, is also paid for through this department. Civic Web, and we use Civic Web primarily as our complaint system, but also as our council agenda and minute system as well, and also the public can view documents through Civic Web, so policies, bylaws that are public, they can view that through this system as well. Zoom is a fairly new program that we've been paying for the last few years, just through COVID. It's kind of been a big need for us, so that is in there as well. And council chambers, that's actually for the audio-visual equipment in this room, for example, like the camera and the speakers as well. So one item that was in this group that we have taken out was DocuSign, that we tagged it as kind of an item that we could want, but we did bump it to next year just as a way to save some costs. I know earlier we were talking about, council was talking about maybe putting it back in, and we can discuss that as well. So contracted services is in here as well. That's an increase up to $75,000. So that does currently include our HR contract. And we use an external third party for HR-related services. Our answering service is in here as well, and we have started an internal review of that and potentially switching providers from the service that we currently use. Our Shred-it services also is paid out of this department, so we do have Shred-it come once a month and to come clean up all of our stuff. And I did confirm that social procurement was still in this line for $5,000, so that could be an item that we could pull out if we have some issues to try and find some money, but it is currently still in there. Our general insurance is paid out of this department, so this is insurance across the whole town, so all of our buildings, all of our equipment and automobiles is paid through here, and it's up to $210,000 this year. Our staff development and training, mainly for most of the staff out of this office, is at $21,000 this year. And our citizen satisfaction survey was kind of earmarked for 2023 as every 2 years. That is in there at $25,000 and can be identified as something we can pull off.
Okay, Councillor Wing.
Thank you. So I would just really like to recommend that DocuSign be put back into this budget. I think that's an important tool for administration to be more efficient. And just a comment from participating from this in this process, but in other meetings as well. I appreciate that Zoom is a good tool, but I'm not satisfied that we have the best. It's not a great engagement. Of course, the person sitting on their computer at home, you can't see council's face. You can't really. Yeah, it's not ideal. But that's just an anecdotal piece for right now. But DocuSign for sure, I would like to see back in.
Councillor Bates.
But from looking at this, I'd just like to flag an item for in camera, and that would be the legal services, because I think I've seen us spend a lot of money on two things this year that we can discuss it in camera that probably aren't normal. I'll just leave it at that.
And Director Vickers, I wouldn't mind postponing the citizen satisfaction survey even into 2024. Maybe get the results early 2025 or something.
Yep.
And I think you said social procurement's still in.
Still in there, so
Okay.
we could pull that out if we need to.
Well, I would like to keep it in, that's just me. And then one thing I'm curious about, if you can get it sometime, is how much has the insurance increased, say, over the last 3 years?
Yep.
Not that we can do anything about it, but, you know, it becomes also, you know, something that we're having to deal with, along with why we're having tax increases the way we are and that kind of thing, because that's a lot.
I can get that pretty easy, so I'll provide that over lunch. Yes, it's through AM. They provide our insurance services. Now, it has been a while since we've gone out to market to have a refresh and see what's out there, so that can be something we can tag for either 23 or potentially 24, just to see. It would be a very large undertaking as we have lots of assets, but it could be time to see if we're getting an accurate rate.
That's okay. That's all right. It's a long morning. I would agree with the social procurement, citizens satisfaction survey. I'd also agree, but is there a way to do it internally at our own survey? That's my question, because it seems to me that 25 grand is quite a bit for a survey of like that, and I don't know if there's an option. So.
It is quite expensive, but it is like a double-blind survey kind of thing. It's totally random phone numbers that they pick, and then it's a little more because it's a third party that's kind of taking all that and then actually extrapolating it out into the data for us. It feels a little more, I don't know what the right word is.
Yeah, it's independent. Yeah, I'm okay with it if this is something that we want to pull, but I'm curious what everybody else has to say.
Yeah, just to give you some history on that. So did it for the first time, and it's Ipsos that does it, and we saw Calgary does it every year, and I think we saw other communities more this size maybe do it every couple of years.
Every 2 years,
so that's why it got in, and
Yes.
you know, they pick different demographics, genders, et cetera, so I felt it was really well done, but
The problem if we do a survey for ourselves, it's
Yeah.
hard to control who's gonna answer, right? If we want a wide range of all demographics, male and female, old and young, versus all one type of demographic could come if we do it ourselves. So this way they know, and once they hit a certain number, like let's say there's only so many men between the
Yeah.
ages of 50 to 65, once they hit that, they won't actually take any more from that demographic to make sure that they get a wide range.
Yeah, no, I'm okay with taking it off if everybody agrees to it. Yeah. Just bump it back.
We can just bump it.
yeah, it'd be
Yeah.
great to do it, maybe just
Yeah,
not-
bump it back.
Yeah, bump it to 24.
Because it was a good survey, right?
Yeah, it
'Cause-
was great.
yeah,
It was a
yeah.
good survey, but it's just checking it out.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, any other questions on general admin? Anyone else, any other line you'd like to dial into, get more clarity on?
Did you want to go in camera now to discuss
Well,
your,
they can wait
Pardon?
if there's more.
okay,
There'll be more,
Yeah,
likely we
okay.
can go in camera later, yeah, if you want. Okay. Okay, Kara, the next one is RCMP. So there's, there's only a handful of lines here. So this does have the fines revenue, so this is the revenue that the RCMP members write in town. We get all that revenue. They also have the RCMP other revenue, that's the criminal record checks. And while we have not ever hit that, we haven't really had a good year yet. So I'm hoping that 23 will kind of see what a normal year looks like for that kind of revenue. So it could adjust next year, but this year we'll leave it the same. And we do see the grant funds from the government for $363,000, and that just helps to pay for an RCMP member. And then on the expenses, we do have our 3 RCMP detachment clerks that work over there and their benefits. And then it's just that RCMP contract, which did increase by $114,000 this year. So,
and I'm just going to mention because I
Yes.
signed the check today.
yes.
But last year, out of the blue, Innisfil got a bill for lab services, and it was $19,000 last year. This year, that same bill is for $31,000, and there seems to be no control. It never came to the municipality in previous years, but the Alberta government is now charging each municipality a portion of the lab services that the RCMP used to do testing of whatever. So it went up considerably over in 1 year.
That's correct, yeah.
And Director Bickers says that not really sure how they figure out how we get assessed for that, but
Yeah, I believe it's the total cost over the whole province, and then
Yeah.
it's a proportionate amount, because we have 10 members, so it's a percentage based. So it could be, could be lower, could be higher.
so it's maybe just another
Yeah.
talking point.
That's right, yeah, just something else that we're at. Okay, any other questions on police services, or? Not a whole lot of lines for us to really play with on that one, so.
Director Bickers, if the retroactive comes through and it falls on us, even if the 70-30 split, plans for that, just out of a reserve, I guess, someplace?
So it would, likely we would just be pulling it out of general cap
Yeah.
reserve to offset that money, so.
Yeah. And if it's easy to find, can you find that number, or for
I can
later
have a
this
look.
afternoon?
Yeah,
And
I can have a look.
I know it's kind of all over the map, and just so everybody's aware of what it could be.
Okay. Okay, I'll tag that, and if not, we can move on to fire. So the big one here is that full-time assistant chief that we did add into the budget here to kind of help offset all the pressures that the manager of Fire Protective Services is feeling right now, so. We did also add in some radio replacements. That's kind of a standing item, as we just happen to have to replace radios every year as they get used. Our telecommunications comes out of here as well, so dispatch services, radios, landlines, internet for the fire department is all funded out of here. Firefighting supplies went up a little bit. Bunker gear, hose replacements, helmets, boots. There's only so long, like some of these pieces of equipment, if they get into a fire or have any sort of damage, it's really imperative that we replace them. Yeah, so is there any specific line you'd like to get to? We do receive a Red Deer County contribution as revenue from the fire department, and that's for help just to offset when our firefighters go out into the county. And we also do have a bit of revenue for their fire department work out on numbered highways. Anytime they go out and attend a crash site on a numbered highway, they can actually invoice back to the province to offset those costs. So we do have a bit of revenue as well in that. That's sitting at $100,000. It'll be on the second page.
Mayor Barkley, through to Director Vickers. I personally think this assistant chief is needed. As we look into the future, we talk strategically about some of the developments that may be coming down the pipe at us, and it's only going to get bigger and worse than what it is right now. I looked, the fire chief having 33 direct reports. These groups are all incident command, and the ultimate span of control in incident command is from 3 to 7 people. 33, I don't know how he manages that, direct reports. So I think this would take some of the load off this assistant chief. And it's also a succession management position that maybe somewhere down the road, if we ever lose Chief Leith, that here's an individual that can step in and off we go. So I fully support this $100,000, and I know there's some hidden costs in there. There's a vehicle, and then there's bunker gear, there's uniforms and all of that other stuff, but I think it's completely needed as we go forth within our community. Thank you.
Yes, there is a few items that we did have to increase just for this position. For example, the uniforms. They'll have to be outfitted with a full set of uniforms, and not just their work uniform, but they'll actually have a nice, like their dress blues or their whatever. Also some staff development and training also was increased this year to offset for a new position. That person will require some training as well. And one other thing that we did add into the fire department this year was the Healthy Employee Initiative. So years ago, the fire department did receive the Healthy Employee Initiative as a benefit for the town. That was taken away from them, I believe, around 2018 or so, 17, 18. So we have elected to include it back into this budget. It may be at a different rate. A full-time rate is $420 a year. We're actually looking to change it to $210 for all part-time staff. So opening it up to all part-time staff. So that would include our part-time custodians, our pool workers, any part-time staff at the arena, and as well as the firefighters. But that would need a policy to go with it. So that will come to council early in the first quarter to kind of outset how that would look, how that works for both the firemen and the rest of the part-time staff. So that's something we added in. It's about $10,000 on the fire department and $10,000 for the rest of the staff. So it's about $20,000 in total that's included in this budget for that, so.
So while we're on the subject, I think we should use this as one of our talking points too, because that's 2% of the tax increase. And
I agree.
our prime responsibility is safety and well-being of the community. So I haven't heard anybody in years complain about our fire department. So I think this should be definitely one of the talking points.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Councillor Bates. No, this is to me, it's a no-brainer. I think it's, yeah, he's sharing a paperclip. But, we're real good friends now. No, I agree, and I think most of us are on side. But I'll let Councillor Wing speak.
Thank you. I completely agree. Just through social media, I've become aware of a very large, very loud campaign coming from Calgary talking about how the Calgary Fire Department is the lowest funded municipal fire department in the country. And it's something that you want to address, and you want to ensure people understand why you're addressing, because it can blow up quickly. And when you're dealing with people's lives and their safety and emergency services, I guess it should blow up quickly if you're not doing your job. So, I fully support this budget.
CEO Becker?
Just for clarity, there is a organizational model fire department has. So there's the fire chief or the manager. There's deputy and assistant chief. Like there's a deputy, assistant deputy chiefs, whatever. There's captains, but there is a hierarchy. But they are volunteer, paid on call. So I just want to make sure it's not a 33 right to the chief indirectly. There's some buffering in there. I just want to make sure that's clear.
Also, question, Director Vickers, with part-time employees, so I don't know how many, like, pool staff kids, I guess, compared to maybe over 18 on staff, like, have you ever looked into, are they available to get benefits? I know typically under 30 hours a week, somebody wouldn't get any benefits, but is there an opportunity to, maybe not this year, but look at that going forward? And
So for Blue Cross, it is a requirement for minimum 30 hours a week, but we are looking at exploring and what that means for part-time staff.
Okay.
There has been this kind of transition in society that full-time work and they're looking for that more work-life balance
Yeah.
kind of thing. So we are looking at that and what that would look like. We have actually included it in the budget for one staff member.
Okay.
But they work basically full-time hours. They're just a
yeah, I always
part-time.
think it's a shame, like somebody's, 29 hours or something, and they're kept at 29 hours to, I'm not saying this organization does that, but we know that happens at organizations to,
That's right.
to prevent people from getting benefits, and it can be quite an attraction to,
Right.
to recruitment. CEO Becker?
Yeah, Mayor Berkeley to add in, there's also some inquiries about 4-day work weeks too. So likely that'll be a 2023 discussion through our employee manual and just explore what that means and costs or savings perhaps. We also offer a flex program for administrative staff. So, but due to the amount of conversation coming around us, it likely will review that over 2023.
So I'm curious, has that conversation changed a lot the last couple of years with the COVID and the work from home? And it's like,
Yeah, COVID has kind of opened our eyes and is kind of making everyone change their thought about what traditional work looks
Yeah.
like. And those 4-day work week, compressed work weeks is kind of the new thing nowadays,
Yeah.
right? People would like more time at home, even if they work a bit of a longer day, right? So,
yeah, I've had that conversation lately with some people that kind of, there's a certain age group that work, and but it's a different mindset nowadays, as it should be. And organizations need to adjust to be able to attract good people to them, so.
absolutely. And I guess the only other increase is we did increase the transfer to reserve a little bit. We had looked at increasing it all the way up to 100,000 from 75, and that's more to reinforce our further reserve kind of combination. So 75 to go to the fleet reserve, but then the fire department also should be putting some in for that building maintenance as well. However, in order to save costs, we did lower it down to 80 this year, but likely would like to look to increase that in a further year. Was there anything in this budget that you'd like to take out? Anything that you think you would like to add, or are we safe to move on for now? We're good? Okay. So the next item is emergency management. And no changes were made to this department. This department does cover the costs associated with the EOC located out of the fire hall. We do pay for 6 landline phones that are based out of there that that are used primarily only in an emergency. We also we have kits over at the fire hall that include computers that have to be maintained constantly, just to make sure that when we go in there, we don't want to have to go through 32 updates. So we do have to pay for regular maintenance on these computers as well. But nothing added, nothing changed really this year. So the only thing is we would likely not be tracking any more pandemic expenses. We haven't had any for the brunt of 2022, so we would likely stop doing that next year. Okay. How much longer till lunch? Okay, should we go to the helipad then? Okay.
Told us we couldn't go.
Well, we can go right now. There may not be a landing, but we can go right now. No. Oh, gee, don't say that.
Ken posted the video on Instagram now, so you can
Oh.
see it, yeah.
Kara, put it up on the big screen. Put it up on the big screen? No, just kidding. It's fine. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we do have the helipad department. The new helipad is now operational, and that does mean a little bit of increased costs. We did budget for some this year, but because the helipad opened quite late in the year, we're not really seeing any of those. So we do have a portion of wages for our staff. They do have to go and do daily inspections of the helipad, so every day of the year they have to go in and make sure everything's working. We do put in a standard $1,000 for training of staff every year. Miscellaneous maintenance is in there at $5,000. That was decreased from last year, simply because it should be decreased as it's brand new, but we may have to replace a light bulb or, those kinds of things throughout the year. Okay, any questions? As well as the daily inspection, also snow removal is a big brunt of that staffing cost. And when we do have landings, we do have to send some staff down there to make sure everything's good, so.
Well, I would just say that I think the cost is less than what we originally thought, right? Because we kind of talked last year about a 1% tax increase to cover the cost of this, so it's less than that, and I think having that helicopter come in yesterday, like it just, I don't know, it just makes you feel so good that facility is back in town again, and there's somebody that was advocating and certainly had a lot of kind of, I guess, influence on where I stood on that helipad, and I sent that person a text when I got home yesterday to say the first STARS flight has just come into town, and they were so grateful, and the emergency physician and the patient would be very, very grateful that it's back in town again, and that's the best possible chance that person has. So.
That's great. Just to clarify in regards to the reduction, so during the process that we went through for the operation of the helipad, it was determined, so we did budget for the fire department originally, and that was the biggest probably cost that we anticipated that was going to hit. But again, with working with Transport Canada, who was actually very easy to deal with, we came up with a better strategy that was obviously easier to maintain, and it's a little lower operating cost for us. So definitely it was helpful to have, I think, the relationship we had with Transport Canada. So.
You did a great job, Director Kennedy, and whoever else was involved. And yeah, I think even finding out the other day that the ambulance doesn't have to pick up the patient and take them over, like that's a big change from what we thought was going to happen too. So all good. Good job.
Okay, so are we done with helipad then? Okay, we'll move on to bylaw enforcement. Okay, let me get down to the right. Okay, so looking at bylaw, we did increase the fines revenue up to $75,000. The rationale being that we now have 2 fully CPO ones that can both do moving vehicle violations. So. In this department, we do see a transfer to or from reserve in the amount of $20,000, and that is to cover the Community Safety Initiative plan that was budgeted in this calendar year and has not been completed, so it's being carried over to next year. So we see the revenue coming in from reserves, and then we can see the bottom project in $20,000 as well in the operating project line. Okay, so they do have one full summer student in here as well. They had their first summer student last year, and it was quite successful, so we are asking for it again this year. And bylaw does do a transfer to reserve into the fleet reserve for update for new vehicles or equipment that would be in their vehicles, radar guns, things like that. That would all come out of that reserve. Yeah, so if there's any questions about what this department covers or.
Director Vickers, I have a question. The legal services that's in there, is that like going to court and having to defend? And
So what that is that every time our peace officers write a ticket, on the ticket, a provincial, and there's an option where you can go as a resident or as a customer to fight it. If they go to fight it, we have a lawyer that goes to attend case every time that happens. And that is been quite a bit higher this year, so that's why we did have to increase it a little bit. So that is a different lawyer than the lawyer that handles our other legal items, so she is kind of an expert in that kind of case, right?
I mean, I know it's not a big amount, but do we track outcomes? Like, do we know that out of the 100 tickets that are written, 80 are successful and 20 are thrown out, or?
Yeah, Mayor Barkley, we do get that regular updates reports from our lawyer, the firm, saying what the status is of those files. I don't, offhand, I don't. See, I told you were gonna pick on me.
Yeah. I could probably find that out and give it to them, yeah.
Mayor Barclay, I've got a question through to Director Vickers. With the additional CPO position, does that mean that 2 vehicles are going to be on duty at the same time, or that they'll be working twice as much as?
So we had 2 vehicles already. We had a CPO1 and a CPO2. So now that CPO2 is just upgraded, like he's
Oh, I see.
completed whatever training he needed to do, and he's now a CPO1.
So it was a promotion?
It is a promotion,
Okay.
yes.
I was wondering because of the budget, the vehicle fuel budget line, if that needed to be readdressed, but you've answered my question, so thank you.
I did double check and to make sure that we didn't need to increase that vehicle fuel budget, and they said no, that was still enough what they needed for now.
So I have a silly question. Do our CPOs, do they have the, I don't know what you call them, the kind of formal uniforms, like not what they typically wear, but the.
Like a dress uniform?
The dress uniform, yes.
I don't believe so, but I'm not sure, to be honest.
I was out at Penhold at Remembrance Day and they do.
Yeah, I don't think they have that, no. Okay, is there any discussion on that? Any other lines you guys want to narrow in on? No? Okay, we have about 3 minutes until lunch. So would you like to move on to health and safety, and then that might be the last one before lunch? Okay. Okay, so health and safety, this is primarily our health and safety coordinator with a small portion of some support staff in here. So the staff development and training, this is primarily staff training for our other staff, not the coordinator. There is a portion that's in that 6,600 for the coordinator, but a lot of this is for our regular staff, as well as we have to account for summer staff every year as well. They have to be given the WMIS and first aid, all that stuff every year. And he does fluctuate it, so this year we may be looking at more first aid courses than next year, just because that's how he tracks when our staff's is expiring. So there could be more there. Telecommunications, as indicated yesterday, that does cover our work alone program as well. And then safety, just general safety supplies like the field level hazards assessment books and things like that. So. Is that everything anything on that one. Our safety coordinator is knee-deep in our audit right now, and you should be seeing kind of an update on our health and safety program quite shortly, or probably in the new year, actually, because it's close to, getting close to Christmas now, so, yeah. So, yeah, is there anything you guys would like to talk about this one, or are we kind of good to just take a breather
good?
and have some lunch?
Todd, do you want to introduce our guest that's in the gallery to everybody? Yeah, would you like to be introduced? So, come on up.
So I can kind of lead in.
for sure.
Introduce myself to Dave Hunka, actually. So Dave is our service provider through Fortis. We met Kayla and Mr. Stanarleski, and Dave is the supervisor of those fine employees. But Dave's come to listen to the budget deliberation, so.
So welcome and thanks for coming. Did you want to say anything, Dave, or? No, okay.
I have a quick question, actually, just on the, excuse me, the franchise fee. Did I hear that you were at 17%? I think you're actually at 15.
We should be at 17.
Okay, well, we can talk after.
Okay, yeah.
Actually, we should actually talk now.
Yeah, really.
There we just balanced the budget.
There we go, we're good. Thanks, that's on
Dave.
record.
Can we buy you lunch? No.
I don't want to go to 17
Okay, so we'll break for lunch then and come back at 1 o'clock. And